The warning. The sky above Ziller 5 was a deep shade of purple, its twin suns casting a soft glow over the towering crystal buildings. The air was calm, the streets filled with the quiet hum of life. The Zillari people, tall and slender with shimmering blue skin, moved peacefully through their day. Commander Vrax stood in the Planetary Defense Center, watching the scanners with a bored expression. Xylar 5 had been safe for centuries. No war, no invasions. The only ships that ever passed through were traders and diplomats. Then the alarm rang. A loud, shrill sound cut through the air, echoing across the entire city. Every Zillari froze in place, their large, glowing eyes filled with fear. The alarm had not been used in over 200 years. It meant only one thing. A threat was coming. Commander Vrax rushed to the main control panel. His clawed fingers moved quickly, activating the planetary defense system. Screens flickered to life, showing a single object in space, moving toward Ziller 5 at incredible speed. It was massive. A warship, unlike anything they had seen before. A voice crackled through the speakers. It was the automated security system, calm but chilling. Brace for impact. Human warship approaching. The room fell into silence. Every Xylari officer stared at the screen, their faces pale. Some whispered in disbelief. Others took a step back, as if the mere mention of humans was enough to make them flee. Commander Vrax clenched his jaw. Humans. No one had seen a human in over 50 years. They had vanished from the galactic stage, retreating into the darkness of space. But the stories remained. The last time humans appeared in battle, entire planets had burned. Armies that once ruled the stars were wiped out in days. The Zillari were not a warlike race, but even their ancestors had feared the humans. Their tactics were unpredictable, their will unbreakable. Worst of all, they never surrendered. Vrax's voice was steady, but his hand shook slightly as he spoke. Confirm the ship's identity. One of the officers, a younger Zillari named Jara, quickly analyzed the data. Her voice trembled as she answered. It's human, sir. No doubt. A cold fear spread through the room. The Zillari had the most advanced technology in this part of the galaxy. Their energy shields could withstand almost any attack. Their weapons were precise and deadly. But against a human warship, none of that mattered. Vrax turned to his officers. Activate planetary defenses. Raise the shields. Alert the High Council. Jara hesitated. Sir, do you think they are here to attack? Vrax didn't answer right away. He stared at the screen, at the monstrous warship moving closer. Humans did not send warships for diplomacy. They didn't arrive in silence unless they wanted something. And when they wanted something, they took it. Finally, he spoke. We must assume the worst. Across the city, chaos erupted. The alarm rang in every district. Families rushed into underground shelters. Defense cannons powered up, their blue energy cores glowing bright. Fighters scrambled to their ships, ready to intercept. But deep down, every Zillari knew the truth. If the humans wanted war, there was no stopping them. On the main screen, the warship slowed as it neared the planet's orbit. It was unlike any ship the Zillari had ever seen. Heavily armored, with massive engines that pulsed with red energy. Weapons lined its hull, silent for now, but deadly. Then, without warning, a new sound filled the room. A message. It wasn't in the Zillari language. It wasn't even a voice. It was a single line of text, written in the universal trade language. It appeared on every screen, every communicator, every display across the planet. Surrender or be destroyed. A heavy silence followed. No one spoke. No one moved. Commander Vrax took a slow breath. His claws curled into fists. He had feared this day might come, but he never expected it to arrive so soon. The Zillari were a peaceful race, but today, they would have to fight. The human reputation. The message echoed in Commander Vrax's mind. Surrender or be destroyed. It was simple, direct, and terrifying. Humans didn't waste words. They didn't negotiate. They didn't bluff. Vrax turned to his officers. "Get me the High Council. Now." Within minutes, the council members appeared on the large holographic display. 7 figures, each draped in shimmering robes, their faces marked with worry. The leader, Elder Myra, spoke first. Her voice was calm, but her glowing eyes betrayed her fear. "Commander Vrax, is it true? The human warship?" "Yes," Vrax replied. "It's in orbit now. They've sent a message demanding our surrender." The council chamber fell silent. No one needed to ask what surrender meant. The Zilari had heard the stories, just like everyone else in the galaxy. Humans were different. Where other species fought for territory or resources, humans fought for survival. And they fought with everything they had. Their bodies were weaker than many alien species, but their minds were sharp, their willpower unmatched. They adapted to any environment, learned from every defeat, and never gave up. That's what made them so dangerous. Elder Myra spoke again, her voice heavy. "The humans disappeared decades ago. Why would they return now?" Vrax shook his head. "I don't know, but their warship is here, and we must decide how to respond." Another council member, Elder Dran, leaned forward. His voice was harsh. "We cannot fight them. You know what happened to the Torvins. Their fleets were stronger than ours. They were wiped out in days." The memory of the Torvins sent a chill through the room. The Torvins were a warrior race, proud and powerful. They had ruled 5 star systems before they encountered humans. Within a week, their entire civilization was gone. No one knew exactly how the humans did it. All that was left were rumors and fear. "But we cannot just surrender," Vrax argued. "If we do, they will destroy us anyway. You've heard the stories. Humans don't leave survivors." The council members exchanged worried glances. Elder Myra raised a hand. "We must try to communicate. Perhaps they are not here for war. Perhaps they have changed." Vrax wasn't convinced. He had studied human history. Their capacity for violence was matched only by their stubbornness. But he nodded. "I will attempt to contact them directly." The council disappeared from the screen, leaving Vrax alone with his officers. The room felt colder now, the weight of the decision pressing down on him. "Open a channel to the warship," Vrax ordered. Jara hesitated but obeyed. The communications panel lit up, sending a message toward the massive ship above them. "This is Commander Vrax of Zillar 5. We seek peaceful communication. Please respond." The message was sent. The room fell silent again, the only sound the soft hum of the defense systems. Seconds passed, then minutes. No response. Vrax's heart pounded in his chest. He could feel the fear growing among his officers. He needed to show strength, even if he didn't feel it. "Activate all defenses," he ordered. "Prepare for the worst." Outside, the skies darkened as the human warship's shadow grew larger. The planet's defense cannons pointed toward the sky, ready to fire. The Zilari fighters hovered near the atmosphere, their sleek ships looking like insects next to the monstrous human vessel. But deep down, they all knew it wouldn't be enough. The humans were coming, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop them. The first contact. The warship loomed larger with every passing second, its dark hull blotting out the twin suns of Zillar 5. The entire planet seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the first strike. Inside the defense center, Commander Vrax's sharp eyes never left the main screen, watching as the human vessel drifted into position directly above the capital. "Status on the shields?" Vrax asked, his voice steady despite the tension in the air. Jara, her hands trembling slightly, responded. "Shields at full capacity, Commander. All defense cannons locked onto the target." Vrax nodded. He knew their technology was advanced, but against a human warship, it felt like aiming pebbles at a mountain. Still, they had to try. Then it happened. A low hum filled the room as the human warship powered up its systems. Bright red energy pulsed along its massive cannons, casting an eerie glow over the Zilari city below. The streets, once bustling with life, were now eerily empty. Families hid in underground shelters, while soldiers stood ready at every post, knowing it might be their last day. Suddenly, a sharp beep echoed from the communication console. "They're sending another message," Jara whispered, her eyes wide with fear. The message wasn't a voice. It was text, cold and emotionless. "Last chance. Surrender or face annihilation." Vrax's jaw clenched. He turned to his officers, his mind racing. The High Council wanted peace, but it was clear now. The humans weren't here to talk. They were here to conquer. "Fire," Vrax commanded. The room went silent for a heartbeat before the defense center erupted into action. Cannons across the planet's surface roared to life, shooting streams of brilliant blue energy toward the warship. The ground trembled with each blast, the sky lighting up in a dazzling display of firepower. But when the smoke cleared, the warship remained untouched. The Zilari's most powerful weapons had done nothing. A cold dread settled over the room. The human ship hadn't even moved. It just hovered there, as if the attack hadn't even registered. Then, with a terrifying slowness, the warship's main cannon began to charge. The air inside the defense center grew heavy. Everyone knew what was coming. But just as Vrax prepared to give the order to evacuate, the cannon powered down. The lights dimmed, and the warship sent one final message. "Prepare a delegation. You have 1 hour." The officers looked at Vrax, their faces pale with confusion and fear. "Commander, what do we do?" Jara asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Vrax stared at the screen, his mind racing. The humans had the power to destroy Zilar 5 in seconds, yet they hadn't. Why? This wasn't the behavior of ruthless conquerors. There was something more going on here, something Vrax needed to understand. "We send a delegation," he said finally, his voice firm. "But I'm going with them." The officers gasped. The commander of Zilar 5, stepping onto a human warship. It was unthinkable. "Sir, it's too dangerous," Jara protested. But Vrax shook his head. "If this is our only chance to survive, I need to see what we're dealing with. Prepare the ship. We leave immediately." As the small diplomatic vessel launched toward the human warship, Vrax couldn't shake the feeling that they were flying straight into a trap. But he also knew one thing for certain. The humans weren't here just to destroy. They wanted something, and Vrax was going to find out what. The desperation. The diplomatic shuttle glided silently through the dark expanse of space, heading toward the colossal human warship. Commander Vrax sat rigid in his seat, his sharp eyes fixed on the looming vessel ahead. The closer they got, the more overwhelming the ship appeared, a floating fortress of metal and death. Its hull was scarred from countless battles, but it radiated an unyielding, terrifying strength. The shuttle's interior was tense and silent. Vrax was accompanied by 2 diplomats, Envoy Lyra and Envoy Dax, both chosen by the High Council for their negotiation skills, but no amount of training could prepare them for what lay ahead. The fear in their glowing eyes was impossible to hide. "Commander," Lyra whispered, her voice trembling, "what if they kill us the moment we board?" Vrax didn't answer immediately. His mind raced with possibilities. The humans hadn't destroyed Zilar 5 when they had the chance. That meant they wanted something. But what? "They didn't kill us when we fired on them," Vrax finally said. "That means they're waiting for something. We need to find out what before it's too late." The shuttle approached the warship's docking bay. A massive gate slowly opened, revealing the dark, cavernous interior. The ship's sensors scanned the shuttle, and for a moment, Vrax feared they would be disintegrated on the spot. But nothing happened. The shuttle was pulled inside by an unseen force, and the gate closed behind them with a loud, echoing thud. They were trapped. The shuttle's doors slid open, and a thick, heavy silence greeted them. The interior of the human warship was dimly lit, the metallic walls covered in strange markings and battle scars. Vrax and his team stepped out cautiously, their hearts pounding in their chests. But the dock was empty. No welcoming party, no guards, no signs of life. "This isn't right," Dax whispered, his voice barely audible. "Where are they?" Before Vrax could respond, a voice echoed through the vast chamber. It was cold, mechanical, and emotionless. "Proceed to the command deck." The sound seemed to come from everywhere at once. Vrax exchanged a tense glance with Lyra and Dax before nodding. They had no choice but to obey. They followed a narrow, dimly lit corridor, the walls vibrating slightly as if the ship itself was alive. The deeper they went, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. Vrax could feel the weight of countless battles and untold deaths pressing down on them. Finally, they reached a massive door at the end of the corridor. Without warning, it slid open with a hiss, revealing the command deck. And that's when they saw them. The humans. But they were not what Vrax expected. Instead of fierce, towering warriors, the humans looked tired. Their faces were gaunt, their uniforms worn and tattered. They carried weapons, but their eyes, those sharp, calculating eyes, were filled not with aggression, but with something else. Desperation. At the center of the room stood a tall figure, clearly the leader. His face was marked with scars, his gaze sharp and unyielding. He stepped forward, his voice cold but steady. "I am Captain Elias Ward of the U.S. Retribution. Identify yourselves." Vrax took a deep breath and stepped forward. "I am Commander Vrax of Ziller 5. We come to negotiate." Captain Ward's eyes narrowed. For a long, tense moment, no one spoke. The silence was suffocating. Then, Ward let out a hollow, bitter laugh. "Negotiate? You think we came here to negotiate?" Vrax's heart pounded in his chest. He had to know the truth. "Then why are you here? You could have destroyed us, but you didn't. What do you want?" Ward's expression darkened. He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a harsh whisper. "We're running." Vrax blinked, caught off guard. "Running? From what?" Ward's eyes burned with a mix of fear and rage. "From something worse than us. Something that doesn't negotiate, doesn't leave survivors. We thought Xyler 5 could help us. But now, I'm not so sure." The words hit Vrax like a punch to the chest. The humans, the most feared species in the galaxy, were fleeing. But if they were afraid, then whatever was chasing them had to be beyond anything Vrax could imagine. The twist. Commander Vrax stared at Captain Ward, struggling to process his words. Humans running. The idea felt impossible. Humans were the predators of the galaxy, the species that everyone else feared. Yet here stood their leader, his face hard but his eyes haunted, speaking of an enemy that even they could not withstand. What could make you run?" Envoy Lyra whispered, her voice barely audible. Captain Ward didn't answer immediately. Instead, he motioned for them to follow. The tension in the air was thick as Vrax and his team trailed the human captain deeper into the command deck. The walls were lined with screens, each displaying star maps and data in strange human languages. But one screen caught Vrax's attention, a map showing the path of destruction left behind by something. Something massive. Ward stopped in front of the screen and pointed. "This is what's coming. We call them the Vorak." The map showed entire star systems wiped out, planets reduced to debris fields. The destruction wasn't random. It was a straight line, moving directly toward Ziller 5. Vrax's blood ran cold. "What are they?" Ward's jaw clenched. "We don't know. They're not like anything we've ever faced. They don't communicate. They don't negotiate. They consume. Entire planets, entire fleets. Gone. We fought them. We lost." He turned to face Vrax, his eyes burning with intensity. "We thought Xyler 5's technology could help us hide or fight back. But now I see you're just as unprepared as we were." The room fell into a heavy silence. The Vorak were not just a human problem. They were a galactic problem. And Xyler 5 was next. Envoy Dax found his voice. though it shook with fear. If these Vorak are so powerful, why haven't they reached us yet? Ward's expression darkened. Because we've been leading them here. The words hit Vrax like a physical blow. The humans hadn't come to Zillerfeig by accident. They were using the planet as a shield, a temporary refuge to buy themselves time. You brought them here. Vrax hissed, his hands curling into fists. His mind raced with anger and fear. You've doomed us all. Ward didn't flinch. We didn't have a choice. It was us or you. For a moment, it seemed like violence would erupt. Vrax felt the urge to lash out, to attack the man who had put his planet in danger. But then he saw it, the desperation in Ward's eyes, the same fear mirrored in his own. Because the truth was, fighting the humans wasn't the solution. The Vorak were the real enemy. Vrax took a shaky breath. If we don't work together, we're both dead. Ward nodded grimly. That's the first smart thing you've said. The realization settled over them like a heavy fog. The humans and Sidlari, once enemies, were now facing a threat that could wipe them both from existence. Their only hope was to join forces, combining the Zillari's advanced technology with humanity's brutal tactics and resilience. But even as they made this fragile alliance, Vrax couldn't shake the feeling that it might already be too late. Outside, in the cold vacuum of space, something ancient and monstrous was drawing closer. The Vorak were coming. And this time, not even the infamous human warship might be enough to stop them. The bigger threat, the uneasy silence between Commander Vrax and Captain Ward, was thick with tension. Two leaders, once on the brink of conflict, now stood united against an enemy neither truly understood. But there was no time for grudges. The Vorak were coming, and they didn't care who was friend or foe. Vrax's mind raced as he followed Ward back to the central command console. The human crew, worn and exhausted, moved with robotic precision. Their faces were hollow, their eyes flickering with the same fear that now gripped Vrax's heart. We need to understand what we're up against, Vrax said, his voice steady despite the storm inside him. Show me everything you know about the Vorak. Ward nodded and pulled up several holographic displays. Vrax's eyes widened as he saw the footage. Massive, shadowy ships unlike anything in the galaxy. They didn't resemble machines as much as they did living organisms, their surfaces shifting and pulsating as if they were alive. Where they passed, nothing remained. Planets were stripped to their cores, space stations disintegrated in seconds, and even the most advanced fleets were reduced to floating debris. They don't just destroy, Ward explained grimly. They consume. They absorb the matter, the energy, everything. We've lost entire colonies without a single distress signal making it out. Vrax felt a chill crawl up his spine. How many are there? Ward's face darkened. Too many. We think they're part of a hive mind. Destroy one, and the rest learn from it. They evolve. They adapt. Vrax turned to Envoy Lyra and Dax, both pale and silent, struggling to comprehend the scale of the threat. The Zillari's advanced technology had always been their greatest strength, but against an enemy that could adapt and evolve so rapidly, even their best defenses might be useless. Why come to Zillerfeig? Lyra finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. What did you hope to find here? Ward hesitated, then sighed. Desperation makes you take risks. We heard rumors of your technology, your ability to manipulate energy at a molecular level. We thought maybe, just maybe, you had something that could help us fight them. Vrax felt a surge of frustration and fear. They didn't. Zillerfeig's technology was advanced, yes, but it wasn't designed for this kind of warfare. They'd never faced an enemy that consumed entire planets. But surrender wasn't an option. Then we create something, Vrax said firmly. We combine your experience with our technology. Together, we might find a way to stop them. Ward's eyes narrowed, studying Vrax for a moment before nodding. It's a long shot, but it's all we've got. As the two leaders began outlining their strategy, Alarms suddenly blared throughout the warship. The crew scrambled to their stations, and the room was bathed in red light. Jara's voice came through the comms from Ziller 5's defense center, panic clear in her tone. "Commander Vrax, multiple unidentified signatures just entered the system. They're huge. It's them. The Vorak are here." Vrax's blood ran cold. They were out of time. The human crew pulled up the external views on the main screen, and Vrax's heart sank. The Vorak fleet had arrived. Their ships were monstrous, like colossal twisted creatures made of metal and shadow, stretching across space like a dark, living storm. The very fabric of space seemed to ripple around them as they moved. "They're early," Ward muttered, his face tight with frustration. "We thought we had more time." Vrax clenched his fists. Time was a luxury they no longer had. "They're scanning the planet," Jara continued over the comms. "Our shields are holding, but, Commander, they're ignoring our defenses. It's like we're not even a threat to them." Vrax's heart pounded in his chest. If the Vorak didn't see them as a threat, that meant they were confident, too confident. That was the only advantage they had left. "Ward," Vrax said, turning to the human captain. "We hit them with everything we have. Your experience, our technology. We throw it all at them. If they adapt, we adapt faster." Ward nodded grimly. "Then let's make them regret coming here." As the human warship and Ziller 5's defenses prepared for battle, Vrax knew this would be the fight of their lives. The Vorak were unlike any enemy the galaxy had ever faced. But together, humans and Zilari might stand a chance. Might. The Alliance. The Vorak fleet descended like a storm of shadows, blotting out the stars above Ziller 5. Their massive, grotesque ships pulsed with an eerie, unnatural light, as if the vessels themselves were alive. The sight was enough to send chills through even the bravest Zilari and human soldiers. But there was no time for fear. Commander Vrax stood on the command deck of the U.S. Retribution, shoulder to shoulder with Captain Ward. Around them, human and Zilari officers worked side by side, combining their strengths in a last-ditch effort to repel the Vorak. The air buzzed with tension, but beneath it was a strange, unexpected feeling. Hope. Energy shields at maximum. Jara's voice crackled through the comms from Ziller 5's defense center. "All planetary defenses are online and ready." Ward nodded at Vrax. "We'll focus on hitting their forward ships. Your planetary cannons can cover our flanks." Vrax nodded, his sharp eyes narrowing. "And if they adapt? Then we hit them with something they can't adapt to." The plan was simple in theory but dangerously uncertain in execution. The Vorak had evolved to counter every known weapon in the galaxy, but the humans and Zilari were about to unleash something unpredictable, a fusion of Zilari energy manipulation technology and the brutal, relentless human combat strategies that had once terrified the galaxy. As the first Vorak ship approached, the Retribution fired its newly modified cannons. Blinding beams of condensed energy, laced with unstable Zilari plasma, shot across the void and struck the Vorak vessel head-on. For a split second, nothing happened. Then, the Vorak ship shuddered. It wasn't much, but it was the first time anyone had seen the Vorak fleet react to an attack. The monstrous ship veered slightly off course, its surface rippling as it struggled to adapt. A cheer erupted from the combined crew. "It's working," Lyra exclaimed, her glowing eyes wide with disbelief. But the celebration was short-lived. The Vorak ships shifted. Their dark, pulsing forms began to absorb and reconfigure, adapting to the new energy signature far faster than anyone anticipated. Within moments, their defenses were back in place, stronger than before. "They're learning too fast," Ward growled. "We need to keep them guessing." Vrax's mind raced. Unpredictability. That was the key. Humans thrived on chaos, and now so would they. "Target their lead ship with staggered bursts," Vrax ordered. "Vary the energy signatures. No pattern. Keep them off balance." The Retribution and Ziller V's defense cannons launched a barrage of unpredictable attacks. Plasma bursts, kinetic slugs, and energy waves, each different from the last. The Vorak faltered again, struggling to adapt to the chaotic assault. But the Vorak weren't just machines. They were alive, and they were learning. Suddenly, the largest Vorak ship, a monstrous behemoth that dwarfed even the Retribution, began to glow ominously. Its surface rippled and pulsed, and then it unleashed a shockwave that rippled through space, disabling several of Ziller V's defense satellites and sending smaller human ships spinning out of control. "We're losing ground," Dax shouted. "Their main ship is too powerful." Vrax's heart pounded. They were out of options. But then, an idea struck him, one born from desperation and instinct. "We need to overload the energy core," Vrax said quietly, turning to Ward. Ward's eyes widened. "You're talking about a suicide run." Vrax nodded grimly. "It's the only way. If we can get close enough to their main ship and detonate a combined Zillari human energy core, it might create an unstable reaction, something even they can't adapt to." Ward was silent for a moment, then nodded. "We'll pilot the Retribution. You get your people out of here." Vrax placed a hand on Ward's shoulder. "No. We do this together." The plan was set. The Retribution, carrying both human and Zillari leaders, would make a final desperate charge at the Vorak mothership, while the rest of Ziller V's forces provided cover. As they approached the colossal Vorak ship, the vessel opened like a massive maw, preparing to consume them whole. But this time, the humans and Zillari were ready. With a final command, Ward and Vrax activated the overloaded energy core. The ship surged forward, straight into the heart of the Vorak vessel. A blinding explosion erupted, shaking the very fabric of space. The shockwave tore through the Vorak fleet, ripping their ships apart in a cascade of light and energy. The hive mind connection between the Vorak vessels shattered, leaving them vulnerable and disoriented. From the surface of Ziller 5, Jara watched in awe as the Vorak fleet crumbled, the once invincible force now reduced to drifting debris. The battle was over, but the cost had been high. Vrax and Ward had made the ultimate sacrifice, their names forever etched in the history of Ziller 5 and humanity. The unlikely alliance between humans and Zillari had not only saved their world, but had forged a bond that would echo across the galaxy for generations. As the survivors gathered to mourn and rebuild, one thing was clear. Together, they had faced the impossible and won.